Is all the buzz we're hearing around Booby Feaster committing to Alabama real? And let's talk about the massive list of names set to go on official visits in Tuscaloosa this weekend. It's your official Tuesday recruiting roundup. Stick around. This is Way Offsides. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. Welcome to Way Offsides. Cotton seems really excited. You know why? Because we're going to talk recruiting. You guys absolutely love talking recruiting. And we got some news for you. We'll get started in just a second. Stick around. I'm leaning towards a prediction. I'm not quite there, but if you stick around the whole video, you'll get it. But before you do that, like I said, it's official visit season all month long. Guys are going to be taking official visits to Alabama. Alabama guys are going to be taking official visits elsewhere. You don't want to miss any of the news. So make sure you are subscribed and you have hit the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. While you're at it, leave a comment and say, Cotton, I really want Alabama to get this guy. What do you think? What are the chances? I'll do my best to answer. But fresh off of its first official visit weekend, Alabama has been making some noise. Now, I know what you're thinking. You see guys committing to Georgia. You see guys committing to Oregon. Hell, you see guys committing to Florida. Why isn't Alabama getting any commitments? Well, they're going to, basically. They are definitely going to get commitments. I need you to be patient. Let me tell you why before we get too far into the weeds here. You want a guy who is going to go through the actual process and make a decision that is best for them. What you don't want is a guy who goes on a visit, acts on emotion, commits to a team while they're on visit, and then regrets it 2 weeks later once they come down from the visit high. It's like going to a bar and picking a wife while you're at the bar. The hottest, craziest chick is ready to take you home and you're like, I'm about to marry this girl. That's it. You know, this feels great, blah, blah, blah. And then 6 weeks into the thing, you're like, I made a mistake. Right? It's very similar. So the guys that Alabama are targeting, they're taking their time. We've got guys who are locked into Bama who are taking official visits elsewhere. Zion Gibson is a prime example of this. I believe that Gibson is a lock for Alabama, is their first commitment of the 2026 class, and he's going on an official visit to Ole Miss this weekend. Could that change his mind? Sure, recruiting's fluid. Things change. We're talking about kids here. Jeff hates talking recruiting for this reason, but Jeff will be fine because you guys love recruiting. It's fluid, but you want these kids to go and make sure they're making the right decision so that at the last minute, they're not flipping for a bag. Remember somebody who committed while on campus in that emotional, excited phase last season? Somebody named Ty Haywood. You guys remember that? And then what happened right before signing day? Flipped to a school he never even visited. You want guys that are locked in and focused on Alabama. They are there to make Alabama better. And don't worry, the players that are there now are doing their part. They're doing their part. Now, let's talk about official visit weekend number 2. Guys like Jet Washington, Booby Feaster, who we're going to talk about later. Kenny Darby had amazing visits last week. Nolan Wilson, just a ton of guys had some really good visits last week. And I think the sowing that Alabama did will reap its reward later in the summer. Now, what about this weekend? Well, Alabama hosts several big names on campus, and I've got them here. I'm going to put this up here so I can read them much easier. They've got several big names that are going to be on campus. Some of these names are already verbally committed to Alabama, and we want those guys to continue to visit so that they don't forget why they're coming to the Tide. Now, right off the bat, you've got 5-star cornerback from Sprayberry High School, Jordan Edmonds. Edmonds has been committed to Bama for a while. Not only is he committed to Bama, he is actively recruiting for Alabama. He's been on some other visits here or there, but his faith has not been stirred in the Tide. I believe that the secondary coach linguist is just got a formidable relationship built with Edmonds. I think his family's comfortable with the Tide, and that commitment will stand. And this visit will further solidify that commitment. And Edmonds will probably likely be utilized as a secondary recruiter during this weekend, because you have a lot of other guys that Bama is targeting, one specifically at the safety position, 5-star Jaira Edwards. Now, the St. Francis Academy safety out of Baltimore, he hasn't really been talked about in the Bama sphere much, but Rivals, I can't remember his name, I posted it, predicted where the remaining uncommitted 5-star DBs will go, and he predicted Edwards to Alabama. Now, Alabama just hosted Jet Washington. Things are looking good there. I'm not saying that Bama's going to get Washington. Washington's last visit, I think, will be Oregon. We know how that goes. So it's a wait and see type game. But Edwards would be a huge hit in this class, especially as Auburn is heavily involved in his recruitment as well. Now, what else is going on? Bama needs a tight end. All right, 2 guys that they're looking for are already committed elsewhere. Somebody that just visited Georgia is now going to visit Alabama, and this is a guy that I think is probably very high on their list, on their board. Caden Prothro, name sounds familiar, obviously, but he's the number 2 tight end. He's out of Georgia. Alabama has been recruiting very well in the state of Georgia this cycle. It doesn't seem like everybody and their mama is just going to Georgia because it's Georgia. I think NIL is kind of playing a role in some of that, but this will be a guy that I think Alabama will definitely go after pretty hard. And somebody else I want you to watch is top 100 edge. Alabama also is looking for edge guys. They've got several of them who were there last weekend. Nolan Wilson, KJ Ford, guys that they really, really, really are trying to get on campus for good. But another one that they're going to take their shot at is Jaquez Wilkes. He's out of Wadley High School. I know in our Way Offsides X chat, there's some folks in there that don't care for Wadley High School for whatever reason. Well, I'll tell you this, if Bama doesn't get him, he's going to Auburn, so you're not going to care for his school there either. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these guys, this will be their second official visit, but it likely won't be their last. So Bama will have to do a lot of work after this weekend to keep them tied to the capstone. A couple other names that I want you to pay attention to right now. Jamarian Matthews, Kamarian Johnson. Those are 2 guys that are already committed to Alabama. Matthews is a top 100 edge. He's out of Gainesville High School in Georgia. Interestingly enough, we're going to talk a little bit about another Gainesville High School in Georgia guy in just a second. And then Johnson is a 4-star defensive line from Muscle Shoals in Alabama. Both of them are committed. They both took official visits last weekend somewhere else. What was actually kind of interesting is Jamarian Matthews visited Auburn. He posted a live on Instagram of him in the Auburn gear during his official visit. And somebody popped up in the chat, somebody who was at Ohio State last weekend, and that was 5-star linebacker Xavier Griffin, who is predicted to land with the Tide, even though he visited Ohio State last week. A lot of folks felt like that visit kind of shook things up, but Wilt Fong, a lot of the prominent names in the country still feel that Griffin is going to end up at Bama, that Bama is the team to beat there in the driver's seat. Now, he has to go to Texas. He's going to Texas next week. Maybe this visit will be enough for him to say, that's it, I'm done. I'm locking it down. Bama it is. We'll see. Texas is going to throw some bags at him. So if he can overlook that, his family are all big Alabama fans. Everybody thought it was going to be Bama in the first place, but he committed to USC. Wonder why. So that does make Texas a little bit more competitive in his recruitment. And a lot of people feel like they might be the school to beat. I don't necessarily think that. I trust Wilt Fong. He's rarely wrong. And he vets his sources very, very well. And so if he says that he thinks it's still Griffin is still going to Bama, I'm confident there. Now, Alabama is likely to pick up a 5-star running back, Xavier Crowell, that he has been predicted to Alabama. We'll see if that prediction sticks. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't, because he'll be visiting Alabama later in the month, right before he commits. But they're also going to try to pick up a secondary running back. So they're hosting Derek Cooper. He's the number 2 running back from Miami. I don't expect Bama to make a ton of movement here, but people have gotten on campus and things have changed rapidly before, right? So just like we say, a lot of these guys that are predicted or committed to Alabama, they go somewhere else and we're like, they're just visiting. Well, a lot of guys are doing that with Alabama too. Visiting Alabama gets eyes on you. They're trying to increase their NIL. So keep that in mind when we're talking about a lot of these kids. The name that I want you guys to go and do some research on, though, is number 9 QB Matt Ponatowski. Now, that's not a name you're going to hear in Tuscaloosa a lot, but Ponatowski, he's out of Cincinnati. He's an Ohio kid. Didn't do a lot of research until he announced that he was going to take an official visit to Bama. And I have since then, and I'm pretty impressed with what I see. He is going to be a project developmental type quarterback, but in terms of what he can do on the ground, it's pretty scary. He actually reminds me a little bit of Keelan Russell, but I could see him getting with Ryan Grubb, and Nick Sheridan, and just really developing. And by the time you've got guys that graduate, by the time Keelan Russell goes on to the league, Ponatowski could be the guy. So as somebody else I want you to keep an eye on. And then I think we talk about Kamari Brooks yet? No, we have not. 4-star edge, another edge. Alabama's going after him from North Oconee High School in Bogart, Georgia. And then 3-star wide receiver out of Lake Mary High School in Florida, Brian Williams Jr. So Alabama's hosting a lot of guys. They still have several visits lined up for the rest of the summer. Some big favorites are going to be on campus in Xavier Crowell, Sadarian Morgan. But there's one guy who visited last weekend that a lot of folks are talking about. And I think it's something we should start paying a little bit of attention to. And that is 4-star wide receiver Booby Feaster, Ethan Booby Feaster. He is a 6 foot, 175 pound wide receiver. He's the number 5 wide receiver in the country. He's the number 5 player in the state, the number 44 player nationally. And now LSU has offered Booby. Texas A&M has offered him. USC, Texas, and Alabama. Now, Bama was not super heavy in the mix here until later in the winter, or later in the winter, I should say. But it seems like that them getting him on campus last week made a very big impact, not just on him, but on his family. Same thing with Kenny Darby. I think it's going to be harder to close the deal on Kenny Darby than it would be Booby Feaster, just because Darby's going to visit LSU. And that's where he's already verbally committed. Now, Feaster, the favorite here, seems to be Texas A&M to stay in state. But assuming that he is okay with leaving the state, you have to think that Bama might be the school to beat there. All signs are pointing to the fact that Booby Feaster and his family, very important, absolutely loved what the staff is doing at Alabama. And it really put Bama at the forefront of his recruitment last weekend. If you'll check social media, you will see every day that guys who are there, even other recruits, even basketball players at Alabama, are in Booby Feaster's ear. They're in Jet Washington's ear. Hey, and those are a couple of the big surprises I think that could come out of the summer. So Booby Feaster, we're not ready to put in a whoop for him yet, a way offsides official prediction, but I want you to watch him. I want you to keep an eye on him. And hey, while you're at it, leave a comment and tell me who you're hoping Bama gets. Is there somebody who's not on an official visit that you would like to see Bama make a last-minute push for before the dead period? Who is it? Tell me in the comments below. Out of the guys we've named today, who do you think are the biggest priorities? Obviously, Xavier Griffin is a big priority. Jair Edwards is going to be a big priority. Prothrow is going to be a big priority. But out of some of the other names, who's somebody that you want to see land with the Tide? Last week, going into visit, Malachi Lee out of Hawaii. He showed up with the Tagovailoa family, and he wasn't necessarily on my radar. And then all of a sudden you start looking at the kid and it looks like Bama's sitting in a really good place in his recruitment. And I'm like, okay, I'm really excited about this. So is there somebody like that for you? Before you leave today, make sure you tell me. Also, before you leave, make sure you have subscribed. If you haven't, you're going to miss all the latest in recruiting. We're going to be covering this stuff all weekend as OVs go on in other places and at Alabama. You don't want to miss a beat, so hit the notification bell. Thanks for sticking around with me. You guys are the best. Say your prayers, read your Bibles, wash your hands, horns down, beat Auburn, and LSU and Tennessee too. Roll Tide.